Welcome back, you lot. A little while ago we had a chat about the Blood Angels and whether they really had it all that bad, and the conclusion was fairly simple, which is that, yeah, they really did get it quite bad when it comes to their update. But at the end of that video, I made a little joke about how it could be worse, because you could be a Grey Knights player. And the thing is, it is a little bit of a joke, but it's also not a joke, but it does have the potential to be something amazing should Games Workshop not give Grey Knights the treatment that they gave the Blood Angels, which is what we're going to talk about in just a moment. This video is sponsored by Marcher Empires at War 1st Edition, which is currently on GameFound, and there is basically 2 days left to get in on the action. The campaign is already fully funded, but there is still time to unlock stretch goals. But that time is rapidly running out, so you better get in there quickly. Marcher Empires at War is a combined arms 28mm alternate history tabletop wargame, which sees you take control of one of the 6 great powers that have brought their forces to bear in the Great War. While you can get started with Marcher Empires at War with the brand new plastic Battle of the Marne box, the game is also fully supported when it comes to 3D printing at home. If you've got the internet, if you've got a 3D printer, you will be able to play Marcher Empires at War, especially since the rules have been pledged to be free forever. For those who want to get started using the Battle of the Marne box, it contains 82 plastic miniatures manufactured by Wargames Atlantic, a set of 10-sided dice by the Baron of Dice, and 2 hardcover rulebooks, one containing the core rules and the other the armies of the great powers. Multiple stretch goals have already been unlocked, but there is plenty more left on the table, with the next one being a modular Art Deco city terrain pack. Use the link in the description and in the pinned comment down below to check out Marcher Empires at War on GameFound within the next 48 hours. Thank you very much to Golden Dragon Games for sponsoring the video. Now let's get back to it. So right now, Grey Knights are in a super interesting position that could go one of 2 ways. They could get updated. Games Workshop could update them and bring them in line with the rest of the Primaris stuff they've been doing, or at least just make them a bit better in terms of scale and detail, give them a bit of a glow up, or they could accidentally mangle the whole range, and it could go either way. But the thing is, that means that Grey Knights have a huge amount of potential when it comes to what they could end up looking like, as long as they don't get what the Blood Angels got. I mean, right now, this is a range that is, to be fair, pretty cohesive. Like, thematically, you know what a Grey Knight looks like. The Grey Knights are extremely clear visually. They're also very striking. Like, they've got some great units. Even things that are just regular power armor and not the Terminator side of things, which are my favourites because, of course they are, it's Terminator armor. Even these have got something that no other Space Marines have got. There's something about the Grey Knights that is simply other. It is significantly different in terms of how their armour is designed compared to everything else. There's more in the way of these inlaid carvings and messages. The weapons they wield are extremely unique compared to every other Space Marine chapter, even when we take into account things like the Dark Angels, where you've got the Inner Circle companions. Yeah, they look grand. They've got amazing cloaks and robes. They look fantastic. The hoods are peak. But at the end of the day, those are pretty much power swords. Yes, they are slightly more fancy power swords because it's Dark Angels, but they're still power swords, you know? Same thing with the Deathwing Knights. Again, this is really nice looking Terminator armour. Is it hugely different from the Terminator armour that we see just standard? Not really. There's extra decoration, there's a bit of extra detail going on, but in terms of like the pattern and how recognisable it is, it's still pretty up there. They do have their chapter specific iconography and weapons. But again, this basically comes down to, it's a bunch of guys with swords and shields, or maces and shields, but either way, they're not the same as, say, this lot. They're not the same as these halberds that the Paladins and the Terminator squads get. These are very unique. You do not find them elsewhere. And when you look at things like the Black Templars, for instance, you see things that would apply to the Grey Knights beautifully if Games Workshop were happy to also keep the Grey Knights looking very unique in terms of their armour. I would argue that the stuff that we see on the Black Templars in terms of the cloth, in terms of the tabards, it looks way better than what the Grey Knights currently have in terms of theirs. And there's a good reason for that. I mean, this kit is getting on quite a bit now. This is pretty old. The scale is totally different compared to most of the Space Marine range now, and things like cloth, Games Workshop just do cloth a bit better. I mean, you only have to look at those Inner Circle companions to see a really, really nice example of power armoured figures with full robes. Now, yeah, at the moment, Grey Knights don't really have anything that is the same as that, but you can see the potential there, right? You can see how they're particularly ornamented and, you know, especially over-the-top armour could benefit from some of the stuff that we already see happening with existing kits in the Space Marine range as a whole. Right now, though, their range is looking a bit ropey, if I'm totally honest. I mean, we have got some pretty old kits going on. Castellan Crow is pretty much the newest thing, I believe. The fact that they have access to things like the Librarian and Terminator armor and the Tech Marine really just highlight how bad the scaling has got. Like, this is one of those things where I think we talk about it a fair bit when it comes to Games Workshop giving glow-ups to different models, especially in the Space Marines range, because, let's face it, that is the range that they shower with the most love and affection. But it's really only when you look at some of the older stuff that's still available, and because all of the Grey Knight stuff that is specific, apart from like 2 models, I think maybe Voldus might be newer as well, but I can't remember when he was released, you really get a feel for, boy, the old Space Marines, whilst they were obviously iconic and still have a place, I think, they were a little bit stumpy. There was a little bit of squat-leggedness going on, which at the time wasn't a problem and didn't bother me. But one of the things that the move to Primaris did was really highlight just how improved Space Marines could be just by increasing the scale somewhat. Just by switching around a few dimensions and making them a bit taller, you end up with something that is just that much more imposing. And looking at the stuff that the Grey Knights have got, that becomes increasingly clear. I mean, when you've got the Purifier Squad, I actually quite like the Purifier Squad. They're pretty cool, but they look too small. They just flat out look too small. There is no other way of phrasing it. They come across as vertically challenged, especially when you compare them with an updated Castellan Crow. I mean, Castellan Crow is, I think, probably the template from which they will take for the rest of the Grey Knights range, but at the moment, because the Grey Knights range has got, like, one decently sized dude, the rest of the ones that are decently sized are generic, and all the other things are old as hell, it really, really makes that stuff feel, I think, older even than it is. Let's not even get onto the Grandmaster in Nemesis Dreadknight as well. Doing an upgrade sprue for this kit is fine, I guess, but at the same time, it feels like adding glitter to something that really could have just done with being reimagined altogether. Even if you're a fan of the baby carrier look, which I know a lot of people aren't, this is an incredibly static kit. If you are building a Nemesis Dreadknight, whether it's got a Grandmaster in it or not, all of them will end up looking exactly like that one. The posing on it is just, here's your pose, and that's it, and that stands out badly. Now, when you look at the posing options on things like Redemptors, I mean, just the whole Redemptor chassis is so incredibly customizable when it comes to making it stand how you want it to stand. This is so far behind on that, it's unreal. But here's the thing, when it comes to the Grey Knights as a whole, not just this kit, the potential is off the charts for making something that would be actually genuinely very different to what we see for every other Space Marine chapter. And the fact is that at Games Workshop, when they want to throw some love at something, they absolutely can. The Blood Angels range is an example of them just not committing. When it comes to individual characters, like Mephiston here, he looks fantastic. He looks absolutely brilliant. It's just, they didn't really apply any of this to, well, any of the options that they should have had individual kits for. I'm looking at you, Death Company. But that brings us back to the fact that right now, yeah, Blood Angels, they did get the short end of the stick when it comes to their glow-up, but the Grey Knights do have it slightly worse in that they're not receiving anything at all at the moment. I mean, even when it comes to the access that they have to vehicles, you're looking at only older stuff. You're looking at stuff that is, by its nature, just getting on quite a bit, and you end up with this odd thing where, simultaneously, the Grey Knights feel somewhat unloved. They feel somewhat ignored. It feels as though they're not getting the attention that they actually deserve. But the Grey Knights, it feels especially rough just due to how much attention Space Marines as a whole have got, whilst they have somewhat lingered behind. But even though right now it might be rough to be a Grey Knights player or to get into Grey Knights due to how old their range is and how badly scaled it feels compared to everything else, you do have the potential there to end up with a really, really interesting and fun and extremely unique looking army. This lot could be awesome. They could be fantastic. But right now, they're not really anything. And in some ways, I'm not going to say that's worse than not getting the treatment you deserve. But at the same time, getting no treatment at all, that feels pretty bad as well. Let me know what you think of potential Grey Knights upgrades. What do you think they would go for? What are you hoping to see from them when they eventually do it? Thank you again to Marcher Empires at War for sponsoring the video. Remember, there's only like 2 days left of the campaign, so be sure to use the link in the description and in the pinned comment down below. I'm going to be streaming tonight at 7:30 PM GMT, raising more money for Calm. Big charity stream. We are kit bashing a horrible monster, so please join us for that. We are 2/3 of the way towards our goal. If we could have managed that today, that would be incredible. So please do join us for that. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you for the next one.